Then the possibility of 10-acre subdivisions is then not possible. And I don't believe that there's 160 acres involved. I believe it's something significantly greater than that.
I was quoting from the professional staff document of Central Saanich, and they clearly say that the hilltop development proposes 5% park dedication. That's about 1.6 acres, which coupled with a further 18% of strata-owned open space, but that is not public land, and that is not park. And it would not even cover the entire area identified as sensitive ecosystems on the site.
Thank you.
And staff therefore cannot recommend that the proposed park dedication offers a significant public benefit that should be considered in exchange for allowing higher densities. And that is from the May 5th, 2010 document from the planning department at Central Saanich. And the consolidation comment I took from here too. They said the consolidation of farm parcels being proposed amounts to a redistribution of existing parcels that will provide no net benefit to agriculture in the community. This is directly from here. And they consolidating the remainder of the 90-acre site with neighboring agricultural parcels is proposed as the single most, and this is in quotes, as the single most significant benefit to agriculture in the community, end of quote. Central Saanich OCP supports the consolidation of agricultural land. Staff consider the consolidation that is currently being proposed, however, would have minimal agricultural benefit. In simplest terms, the current proposal would do little more than split off the 32-acre site. Preserving the continued operation of Vantreight farms has been presented as the goal behind the development of the hilltop. Staff therefore suggests that if consolidating farmland is to be considered a unique public benefit to justify supporting the proposed rezoning of the hilltop, then the commitment to preserve the farm operations should be solidified by consolidating all contiguous parcels under the ownership of Vantreight farms. So, hopefully,
you are aware that they have changed how much land is being set aside, and they're consolidating into much larger lots now. That the May 5th information is no longer the current state of
well,
development.
what I understand is that they were suddenly having green space, which were backyards, and in between parcels, lots. And my understanding is that that also happened at Island View Estates, and they left trees in between the lots, but because they had actually so seriously impacted the ecosystem, most of those trees failed. And so when you consider that as green space, I think we have to really question it, and I don't consider that real green space. And my understanding is the park dedication is still at 5%. Have you got different numbers?
I'm just talking about the consolidation of the agricultural land. You know it's consolidated into much larger lots now. That is the proposal now. It's no longer at all. It's including more lands into 2 lots, I believe it is now. That are significantly larger, potentially among the largest on the island, or in this region, with a no subdivide covenant.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
And as far as I understand, the 5% park dedication was also Central Saanich specifically requested that no more than 5% be set aside as dedicated park?
That's not, that is not my understanding. In here they're saying here very clearly that they don't consider that an adequate public benefit.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I have a question. It's my understanding that land zone A1 in Central Saanich can be divided into a minimum of 10-acre parcels. Just because this land is consolidated into however many pieces or how big a parcel, can it not then be subdivided still into 10-acre parcels? Or I'm not sure how that works.
The question is, if the land that is not being proposed for development is consolidated, can it not still be divided into 10-acre parcels, because that's what the zoning says for A1?
Generally, yes, it could still be subdivided. What has been indicated is that a no subdivide covenant, if the Agricultural Land Commission agrees to it, would be registered on the title, which would mean that it wouldn't be.
More questions? Yes.
Deborah, my question is for you. You mentioned some policy approaches that would support farming. One of them was an agricultural land trust, and the other one was an agricultural fund. Are there legal frameworks in place in BC that would support these kinds of supports for farmers pertaining to this development?
Certainly, I mean, we have examples of that here in the region already, but for different purposes. So we have the most successful conservation fund in the province. There are only 3 in the province, one in the East Kootenays, a new one in the Cowichan Valley, and then here our 10-year-old, it's just escaping me, our green fund, what do we call it?
Oh, it's really a park acquisition.
Thank you. Our CRD's Park Acquisition Fund. So the levy that we all pay $10 per year, what previously was $10, and as of this year it's $20 per year, to gain about $3 million to buy parkland in the region each year, and that's leveraged. What we pay is about 40%, and the rest is leveraged 60% with other organizations to purchase parkland. So it's been highly successful, and where we purchase those parkland is in the most, the areas that have been identified by the Capital Regional District Park staff, as well as the conservation organizations across the region. So we have some very contiguous parcels. So that's one example, and then there are myriad examples across Europe and across North America where there have been very successful. It's not necessarily farmland acquisition funds, but agricultural funds. They're used for a variety of different purposes in different counties in the U.S. and in different states for some, mostly purchasing agricultural covenants. We sort of transfer development rights type purchases, which we can't do here under our land system, but there are a variety of different ways it could be used under our land title system. Then the other example is a farmland trust fund. Perhaps the best example is the National Trust in Britain that purchases not only agricultural lands, but a wide variety of lands for different purchases, and then manages them on a not necessarily on a rental basis, but on a long-term lease basis, a lot of them. So it looks like a purchase. What in Europe is very well recognized as a land holding form. You own an interest if you have a 99-year lease or a very long-term lease. We don't do that as much in North America, although all through the Lower Mainland there are co-ops that are very well bankable and recognized as a full interest in property. So the purpose really is simply to take agricultural land out of the urban market and put it into a unique agricultural market so that it can function within that, and we can have more people have access to it who really want to farm the land.
Gentleman right here.
Whoops. You've confused the hell out of me. Your initial presentation, you referred to this fund as protecting farmers and farmland. And you've just said that the fund is used primarily to purchase parks. How are we going to be fed off parks?
I'm sorry if I confused you. I'm using the example of the parkland fund that we have, the parkland acquisition fund we already have. And I'm saying we don't have a farmland acquisition fund. I'm just using that as an example of a similar type of fund that...
In your original presentation, what I heard you say was that you have a system which I think is similar to wherever she's gone. What's the farm down on?
Well, my apologies if I confused you. We don't have those in place at this point in time.
If we had a fund, the farmland fund, it could be used to protect farmland and farmers. And now you're saying it would be used to buy parks.
I agree with your first statement that if we had an agricultural fund, it would be explicitly dedicated for the agricultural industry in the region.
I think, if I might try and answer that, I think in the past, people were worried a lot more about green space and parks than they were about farmland and agriculture, partly because we had a lot of farmland 25, 35, 40 years ago. We're starting to run out, and I think people are getting more and more concerned about it now, and I think there is probably much more will among the public and among politicians to set up a fund for agricultural purposes than there was 20 or 30 years ago when the Parkland Fund was set up. I see no reason why that shouldn't happen now.
I have a splendid idea for you in Egypt.
Sir, well, you get your shot in a minute.
Okay.
When 2 more questions, 3 more questions, and that's it. And then we'll move to speeches. But people can still ask questions. I just wanted to get the questions in. Yes, sir.
A lot of the proposal is hinging on the voting power of a very small group of councillors.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Who determines whether there's a conflict of interest of those members with the voting power?
That is a really gray area, I can tell you.